You remember this woman from that viral video like 10 years ago? This guy, he pulled out his camera and started filming because his wife was having a freak out. He wanted to spend his Saturday doing chores, but she desperately wanted him to take her to the lake. I want you to watch this clip.
I never get, I want to have just one day where I can. One day! One day where I can go on the lake!
Because you're not getting... It's okay. That's the best part about this. Now you're going to text everybody.
I am, and that is I want to go on the lake!
So you're going to make me look like a bad guy. So
yes, you are! You're not taking your wife out on the lake that we spend money for! Please! I'm about to go crazy!
You already have.
I'm about to go crazy. You remember like a month ago, I posted that video saying the only solution or the only protection against crazy women is filming them. This is a prime example. Of course, he filmed and then it got posted online and she divorced him over that. Not a big loss in my opinion. The reason why I wanted to show you that clip is because what I'm going to explain to you in this video is that some women are just miserable. Okay, it's not circumstantial. It's not an accident. That's just who they are in their personality. They're miserable women. They're irritable. They're anxious. They're depressed. They're angry. They're just fundamentally unhappy with their life. That's who they are. So what would be the solution? If the woman genuinely wanted to change that, well, it would be an honest self-accounting of who she is, what her value systems are, an honest exploration of her own emotions, taking responsibility for negative thought patterns, changing her value system to be more empowering, seeking therapy to recover from any unresolved childhood trauma. In essence, taking responsibility for her own mental state and then making changes. A woman could do that. A miserable woman has that option. But do you know what's a lot easier than doing that? It's convincing a man that it's his fault. Finding some poor sucker and then drilling into his brain that her emotional state is his responsibility. And that if he doesn't want her to feel all these negative emotions, then he needs to do absolutely everything that she wants. Turn himself into a dancing monkey, an emotional butler that's always at her beck and call and does everything that she demands. The sad truth of the dating market is that there are men desperate enough for intimacy, for relationships, that they'll willingly do that. Yes, it's codependent. Yes, it's a blatant distortion of reality, but men have been culturally indoctrinated to believe that it's their responsibility to take care of women, that a woman's emotional state is his fault, and that it's his role, his job, if he wants to be a real man, to make sure that she's never ever unhappy. If you have a situation where a woman is fundamentally unhappy in her relationship, very rarely will outsiders diagnose it as, oh, I guess she's just one of those fundamentally miserable women. Way too often, especially from other women, the blame will just be heaped upon the man. He doesn't spend enough time with her. He doesn't prioritize her over his hobbies. He doesn't pay enough attention to her. He doesn't spend enough time with her. He doesn't adopt her hobbies. He asks for sex too often. He doesn't make as much money as her sister's husband. Whatever it is. Let me tell you something that you should have been told a long time ago. If your girlfriend or wife is going to be miserable unless you do the next thing that she's asking you to do, then her happiness is not actually dependent on you doing that thing. She's just a fundamentally unhappy person. And if you continue to dance around like a monkey, being her emotional butler, all you're doing is delaying the inevitable. She's miserable. That's who she is. Just let her be miserable. If she's fundamentally unhappy, it's actually not your job to change that. It's not even really within your capacity. If you take on that responsibility and you say, yes, I don't want her to be unhappy, so I'm going to do absolutely everything that she demands of me, and say you spend 3 months being at her beck and call, I promise you, you haven't actually changed anything. Her fundamental unhappiness is there. You've just delayed the inevitable. Worse than that, I actually think you've made things a lot more difficult for yourself, because in reenacting that pattern, all you're going to do is strengthen her sense of entitlement. Like, yes, he's acted this way before. He's always taken responsibility for my emotions in the past, so that when you do eventually stop that because it's a batshit crazy strategy, she's going to be more upset than ever. At that point, when you stop giving in to her demands and her expectations, she's not going to just suddenly take responsibility. No, she's going to accuse you of being cruel. How dare you take this support away from me? Now, I'm not saying that it's fundamentally unhealthy to be taking action in order to try and improve your mood. There's something fundamentally human about doing that. You as a man, you've probably got your strategies. You go fishing, you go play golf, you go to the gym, you do something that makes you feel better. But I bet when you honestly reflect upon it, you can tell the difference between when you're taking action to further your happiness and when you're taking action to run away from unhappiness. There's such a difference between these two types of behavior, because when you're seeking to continue happiness, you start from a really positive place. You're already happy, and all you're doing is just keeping those good times flowing. You're taking action in a relaxed manner. But when you're running away from unhappiness, like desperate, like, oh, I don't want to feel that, I've got to get away from that emotion, it's not calm, it's not relaxed, it's very stressful. You bring a certain amount of intensity and anxiety to it, like, I've got to try this, I've got to do this, and you keep changing your mind and shifting from action to action to action as you realize that nothing is actually working. Hopefully you know this, that you can't really outrun your own emotions, because if you're going to be a good partner for a woman, you need to understand how this process works inside yourself so that you're able to recognize when it's happening for her. Is she trying to outrun her emotions? Is she trying to get you complicit and codependent in that process? Because if so, stop it. You got to learn to trust your gut. If you sense that there's nothing that you can do that's actually going to make her happy, it just seems like an impossible task, then trust your gut. Your instincts are probably correct. She's miserable, so let her be miserable. I'm not saying this to punish her, like, oh, good, let's let women suffer. No, by letting her be miserable, you're actually doing her a favor. She could waste the rest of her life making herself and you and all other people around her completely miserable if she's constantly running away from emotion, trying different things. It's such a simpler solution to just let the emotion come up, to feel it, to grieve it, to let it out so that she can move on. So if you sense that your girlfriend has got this emotional buildup and she's acting really anxious and frantic and she's trying to tell you to do this, do that, stop focusing on the content of what she's saying and just draw attention to the emotions that she's feeling. Decline her requests. She's telling you to do this or that. Just say, no, I don't really feel like doing that right now. What I want to do is talk about how you're feeling. Do not expect a positive response when you first do that. Understand the brain is hardwired to avoid pain. Nobody really wants to feel unpleasant emotions. There's a reason why we avoid them. At first, she might be really uncomfortable and throw like a little bit of a tantrum. She's like, no, I don't want to talk about how I'm feeling. I just want you to do what you said. Like that woman at the start of the video is like, no, I just want you to take me to the lake. And she's screaming and screaming like, why aren't you doing what I'm saying? Don't get distracted. Hold the course. Don't give in to all these deviations and distractions. Keep your focus on her emotions. Because as hard as processing emotions can be, it brings cathartic relief. It's actually what makes you a lot more calm and relaxed once you finally grieve those emotions that you were running from. There's a reason why women read sad books, listen to sad music, watch, romantic movies where the man dies at the end and leaves her all alone. Is she wants that cathartic experience of actually feeling all those emotions, and she feels better afterwards. You may think that you're doing her a favor by doing everything that she asks, running this errand, acting this way, doing everything that she's telling you to do, but you're really not. Even if she's saying that's what she wants, it's your job as a man to know better than that. You've got to kind of be a leader in this relationship. And if you sense that she's trying to outrun her emotions, it's your job to just stop things, to calm her down and actually get her to be present to where she truly is. It's actually a very powerful demonstration of your masculinity that you are able to hold frame against her chaos. She's throwing demands and tantrums at you, but you're not fazed. You understand what's going on and you say, hey, I'm not listening to all that outside noise. I can sense there's something going on for you here. Boy, that's powerful. It's like you are demonstrating that you understand her better than she understands herself. Psychologically, you're sort of making that claim like, hey, I know what's going on in your internal world. I got you. The feminine really, really responds to that. What she's looking for in a man is masculinity, safety, and protection. She wants to feel as though he's going to be strong and solid for her, even when she's potentially losing control. This is the way that you do that. In essence, you could think of that initial tantrum that comes when she's so upset that you're not doing everything that she's asking you to do as a kind of test. Can I throw this man off course? Can I get him to become my emotional butler? Can I get him to give in to my terrorist demands as I threaten and scream and show off all my anger? But if you pass that test, you show yourself to be calm and relaxed, but very, very present, and you invite her into that space with you so that it's happening inside her frame. Not only is she going to get the cathartic emotional release that she was craving, but she's also going to be so much more closely bonded to you. This is where the gratitude comes in. At first, you might get screaming and tantrums, but eventually she's like, oh my God, thank you so much for bringing me to this place. I feel so much better. It's not uncommon for couples to have sex after a kind of fight or emotional release like this, because she's going to feel so close and grateful to the man that she wants to express that physically. Of course, in order to be able to do this job effectively as a man, you need to be comfortable with emotions, specifically your own emotions. This is actually a topic that keeps coming up in my recent Patreon videos. But essentially, if you aren't aware of what anger, sadness, fear feels like inside yourself, when your girlfriend's going through those same emotions, it's going to be too intense a mirror. Like, I'm a man, I'm busy trying to repress those feelings, so seeing them expressed in you is just way too difficult for me to handle. And so you run away or you try and shut her down. This is actually when you see that stereotypical like man-woman dynamic play out. You know, when a man tries to solve a woman's emotions like they're a problem and she's like, God, I just want you to listen to me. Women absolutely hate that. And it comes about because the man is not comfortable being emotional, actually just letting her grieve her emotions and supporting her through that. But if you want to take your mastery of relationships to the next level, this is a skill that you can't afford to skip. You need to understand emotions. You need to understand how they operate inside your girlfriend, and you need to understand what's actually good for her. You may think you're being a nice guy, like a strong man, by putting your own needs last, always doing everything that she wants, taking responsibility for her emotions and acting whatever way that she demands so she never has to feel those uncomfortable emotions. But you're not. You're actually letting her down in a big way. If she's fundamentally miserable at her core, then you need to acknowledge that that's the reality. She needs to look at her own emotions honestly. All the behaviors and all the actions that you're trying to do to solve that emotion, to distract her from that emotion, that's just throwing things into a black hole. It's not making any progress whatsoever. If she's miserable, let her be miserable. Stop taking responsibility for her emotions. It's not your job as a man to just fix things for the woman. Be strong. Be strong enough to let her have the emotional experience that she needs. If she's really unhappy, stop all the thoughts of, oh, well, we've got to change that, or, well, what can I do to help? If she's unhappy, your response has got to be, okay, so you're unhappy. That's all right. Let's just be there. You cannot get anywhere unless you first know where it is that you're starting. And if she's starting from misery, then she's starting from misery. I know all of this talk about like emotions and action and codependence, it can get really, really complicated, and it's difficult to sometimes know how this applies in the world that we see around us with like cars and skyscrapers and systems of thoughts and governments and organizations. Like, the world has become so incredibly complicated that it can be really strange to actually consider what humans are at their core. Like, what is our purpose? How did we get here? And really, from a biological point of view, you have to ask the question, is it not kind of just all about reproduction? Like, even survival to a certain extent in the animal kingdom sometimes seems less important than just passing on your genes. Think of all the species that mate and then die. I suspect that even though we might not acknowledge it, so much about what's guiding us in society is simply got to do with that reproduction instinct. And so I've created a Patreon video where I try and tease that out and actually find all those areas where it's expressing itself in unexpected ways. If this sounds interesting to you, like you're curious to know what impact our instinct for reproduction is having on our modern life, then you're going to want to check out my Patreon. That's where you're going to find that video, plus like almost 300 other exclusive videos. I have this massive back catalog. For every video that I post here on YouTube, I post an additional bonus video on Patreon, which means that at the moment you're only seeing half of my total content. Sign up to my Patreon to see the other half. Also, if you're having issues in your relationship or in your dating life and you want my advice, then hit me up on Hey Hero, tell me what's going on, and I'll create a personalized response just for you. And if you want to take your knowledge of this stuff to the next level, then check out my paid course, 100 Sides of Women. It features 10 real stories, real women. You're challenged to diagnose what's going on in their lives, their behavior, their thought process. There's 100 questions in total. There's 6.5 hours of video footage for you to go through. Of course, I give you the answers, so it tests you, but it educates you as well. There's a free trial so you can test out the format to see if you like it. There's a video in the description box below that explains how the whole thing works.